Welcome to Learn to Crochet with Mintcat. Today is lesson 6, and last week we made a dishcloth or washcloth, and this week I would like to show you how to make cotton pads. So these are basically like those disposable cotton pads that you can buy in a store to remove makeup or clean your face, and these are made from cotton yarn, so they are reusable. You can wash them at really hot temperatures to get them really clean, and you can throw them in the dryer and they come out really nice and soft, and you can use them again and again. So it's a little bit more environmentally friendly, and they also look really neat. So I'll show you how to make these today. So we'll be starting to work in the round today. This is a little bit different than working in a straight line like we did with a dishcloth, where we started with a chain and then worked back and forth on it. The materials we need for today is the leftover yarn from last time. We'll be using the 5mm crochet hook again. I don't think it's focusing on it, but it's the 5mm hook that we used last time, and we'll need some kind of stitch marker. If you don't want to invest in stitch markers yet, or haven't found any that you like, you can find them at craft stores, at yarn supply stores, at craft markets. They often have handmade ones. Online there are a lot of suppliers. But if you don't want to go there yet, or don't find any you like, just get a box of paper clips. Any color, doesn't matter. I have a big mixed color box here, and I actually really like using these as stitch markers, because there's just so many in a box. You can just keep using these in your projects, and they work really well as stitch markers. So just get a couple of these. I'll take out some yellow ones because these will contrast nicely with our yarn. And what you do with these paper clips is you just loosen them a bit at the top. So just pull this up a bit, and then it'll be easier to slip them into your stitches. And these will be used just to mark stitches so we know where the beginning stitch of a round is. Because when you're working in a round, you can sometimes get lost because you just keep working round and round. And if you don't know where your beginning stitch is, you might not know where to put your next one. So, and again, we'll be using our darning or yarn or tapestry needle and scissors, of course. But first we'll start with working in the round. There are several different ways to start working in the round. Basically, you have to create a ring that you can work your stitches into. I'll show you a couple different ways. One of the easiest ways to do it, which a lot of beginners like to do, is to just get your slip stitch on your hook and then do 2 chain stitches, and then simply work your single crochet stitches into the first chain. So you don't really have to make any ring or anything. You just start working 6 single crochet stitches into your first chain. 4, 5, 6. And this would be your starting ring. And I'll join this with a slip stitch to the first one, and this would be a ring. So this is a very easy way because you don't have to do anything to get your ring started. You just do 2 chain stitches and then work all your stitches that you need into the chain. But you do see that there's a little hole in the beginning, and you can't get rid of this. So if you want something that is completely closed, you will have to use a different method. And this is my favorite method to start working in the round with. It is called the magic adjustable ring. There are lots of tutorials out there on how to do this. Some of them show you to work with 1 strand. Some of them show you to work with 2 strands. I recommend working with 2 strands. I'll talk more about that later. I just want to show you the method right now. I'll take this out of the way so you can see what's happening. Alright, so we take our yarn, and I wrap it around my hand in a particular way. This is how I crochet. I wrap it around my pinky once, then I run it over my pointer and wrap it twice around my middle finger. And then I can hold the tail with my ring finger and my thumb. So You can wrap it around your fingers any way you like, but you need to have it wrapped twice around a finger. Some people prefer to wrap it around 2 fingers and then hold on to the tail at the other end. I need to make it a bit longer for that, so they can then work through these fingers. I find it easier to just use 1 finger. So wrap it around a finger twice, loosely. It's not supposed to be super tight. You have to be able to work into it. And hold on to the tail so it doesn't slip away. So you insert your hook under both of these loops. Pull your working yarn through. And then do a slip stitch. This way you anchor your yarn around these 2 rings. Then you want to make the first stitch a little bit looser so you can work into it again later. And I will do 6 single crochet stitches right here on my fingers. 1, just around both of these loops that are around your middle finger. 2, 3, 4, and as you can see at this point you can let go of the tail and just hold on to the loops around your finger so they don't slip away. Some people take them off their finger and work the stitches then. And you can work as many or as little stitches as you need. Some patterns need you to start with bigger stitches, like a half double or a double crochet. Right now we're going to do 6 single crochet. Then you slip it off your finger, and you see there are 2 loops that you had around your finger. You take the one at the back. This one is at the front. You take the one at the back and pull it to tighten the ring all the way so it's completely closed. And then you take your tail and pull it. So this way you have a completely closed ring. And again, I'm going to join it with a slip stitch. And I'll show you the difference. So this one has a bit of a hole. Most other ways, if you don't start with a magic adjustable ring, you will probably always have a little hole at the beginning. For some works it doesn't really matter. But if you're doing something like a cotton pad or an amigurumi that you need to stuff later, it is nice to have a completely closed hole. So this is a really nice method to start with. Practice it a little bit. If you can't get the hang of it right away, just keep practicing or find a different tutorial online, because, you know, I might not be showing it in a way that works for you. There are other tutorials out there that might work better for you. Just keep in mind, some people only wrap the yarn around their finger once and overlay it and do the ring then. If you do that, there's always the danger that your ring might open a bit while you're working on it, because it's not anchored like it is with these 2. If you have 2 loops, it really anchors it. It doesn't open again, even when you're working and tugging on it. But if you just do 1 loop, it can slip open and you will have a hole again. So I recommend just use 2 loops at the beginning. Another thing when you're working on the round is you can work this piece, the tail piece, into your first few stitches so you won't have to sew it in at the end. I'll show that to you when we start working. So I'm going to get the pattern back. This is the pattern for the cotton pad. It says 6 single crochet and ring, slip stitch to join. SL means slip. This is what we just did. So this is what we have right here. After you join, you always do your chain stitches to get to the height of the stitch. Since we're working with single crochet, it's just 1. So we do 1 chain stitch. And this dark one is my tail. And I'm going to work this along so it's going to be disappearing inside the stitches. So round 2, R&D stands for round. So round 1, R&D stands for round, says 2 SC single crochet in each stitch around, join 12 stitches. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to put 2 single crochet stitches in each, and this is where you need the stitch markers to keep track of where you are. So I'll take one of my paper clips and I'll just slip it into the last stitch I made. And with that I mean the last single crochet, not the slip stitch, not the chain stitch, but the single crochet, the last single crochet stitch I made. I will slip it through both loops on the top, and I like to turn it around again so it can't fall out. This is how I put my stitch markers in, and now you know this is the last stitch of the round. So when you do round 1, you want to end up in that stitch with your last one. So now we're going to do 2 single crochet stitches in each stitch around. So we're starting with the first one, which is the one we put the slip stitch in. And to take this along and have it crocheted inside your stitches, you just lay it on top of your work and basically work around it. So the tail is laying on top of my stitch, and I'm just going to single crochet 2 stitches around it. That's 2 in the first one, and then I'll do 2 in each of the next ones. So we have 3, 4, 5, 6, and I'm still taking this along. It's in the middle of my stitches. 7, 8, 9, 10, 'Now you can either take the stitch marker out or just work with it. 11. I just usually work with it and leave it in there. 12. So we're still taking our yarn along. It's inside my stitches, which will anchor it nicely. And I like to leave the stitch marker in for a couple rows because you can easily see the next stitch you do is like right on top of the stitch marker. So you don't have to move it every round, but if you're just beginning, you probably want to slip the stitch marker out of your stitch and put it right here in your last one. So again, you know which was your last stitch of the round. You can take it out before you do the last 2 stitches, if that's easier for you, or you can just leave it in and, you know, take it along. And again, we're going to join. This is the slip stitch we joined with. This is the chain stitch we made. This is the first single crochet. We want to join with the first single crochet and pull it nice and tight. And this way we join our round. We chain 1 again. And now we want to do our next round. So, round 2, little star, and then 2 single crochet in first stitch, 1 single crochet in next, and there's another little star, and then it says repeat from star to star 5 times. Join for 18 stitches. So these repeating instructions are very common in patterns. You will see these little stars, and you always know from here to there is what you repeat. So we're going to repeat 2 SC in first, 1 SC in next. So it's going to be in sets of 3. So we're going to do this all the way around to increase by 6 stitches to get to 18. We're going to start with the first one again, which is the one that our chain is coming out of, because that's the one we joined with. So 1, 2 in the first, and then 1 in the next. That is our first 3 stitches, and we'll repeat this another 5 times to get all the way around for 18 stitches. So you can just count to 3 every time. 1, 2, 3. And at this point, my tail is short enough to not keep it along anymore. I'm just going to cut it off right here, and it's not going to slip out because it's inside all of these stitches. So I just go in there, cut it off. Be careful not to cut off your working yarn. You just want to cut off the little tail. And then we don't have to bother with sewing that one in later. So we're going to do another 4 repeats. And I'm going to take my stitch marker out because I want to move it. I'll do my last stitch. and put my stitch marker right back in there. So again, I know which one is the last stitch. And if you're unsure if you've done this round right, you might want to count the stitches just to make sure that you're on track, because our pattern says 18 stitches at this point, so we want to count if these are really 18 stitches. The way you do this is you look at the top and you count these little V stitches that you see. So this one that's on the side, right there, that is your chain. So we start with this one on top. I hope my camera is going to focus with this. There we go. So this is the first one. We're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in dark red, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and number 18 is the one with a stitch marker in it. So we're right on track. And now our next round says, again, there are the repeat stars, 2 single crochet in first stitch, 1 single crochet in next 2. Repeat 5 times for 24. So now we want to do 2 in the first and then 1 in the next 2. First I'm going to join again. You want to get to your first stitch to join. There we go. We're in the first stitch. Pull a slip stitch, pull it tight, and do a chain stitch. And then we're going back into the same stitch because that's our first one, and do 2 single crochet in there. 1, 2, and then 1 in the next 2 stitches. 1, 2, and we're going to repeat this another 5 times to get all the way around. So we're going in 4s this time, not in 3s. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3, and I'm not going to move my stitch marker right now. I'm just going to show you how I do it. So I just pull it over to the side and do my stitch right next to it. So now the stitch marker is right around that stitch, and you can just look up, the next one is the last one in the next round. So I can still keep track of it this way. If you're more comfortable moving it every round, go ahead and do that. Whatever is most comfortable for you. So again, I'm going to join to the first stitch right here. Pull a slip stitch, pull it tight, do a chain. Now the next round of the pattern, round 4, says 2 single crochet in first stitch, 1 single crochet in next 3. Repeat another 5 times, join for 30 stitches. So now we're going to work in 5s with 2 and then 3. So again, we're going to work into the first stitch right here. It's the same stitch your chain is coming out of. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to do this another 5 times to get all the way around with 30 stitches. And now I'm at my last stitch. I'll do my last single crochet in this round, and then I'm going to join it again right here to my first stitch. Join. And this time I'm not going to do a chain because we're not doing another round on top of this. So now we have 30 stitches. The reason we increase by 6 every round, so we start with 6, then we have 12, 18, 24, 30. The reason we increase by 6 every time is because we want to have a flat piece, so we have to increase in an even way, and for single crochet stitches, multiples of 6 is the way to go. If you'd be working with half double, you want to start with 8 and then increase by 8 every round, and if you're working with double crochet, you would start with 12 and increase by 12 every round. That's just to keep it nice and flat so it doesn't buckle up or down. And with this way of working, since you're not going back and forth, you can definitely see a wrong side and a right side. Wrong side is the back of your piece. In a pattern, it would be abbreviated WS for wrong side. And you can see that the stitches here look very different. You can see these stripes here. And the right side, which is the front, looks like this. You can see little ridges and all your stitches lined up. So right side abbreviated RS, and wrong side WS. So now our last round of the pattern is going to be a border around it. I'm going to show you with one of the pads that I already made. This one has a border around it, so it makes it look a little bit rounder, a little bit neater, and it makes the sides much nicer looking and flatter. So all we do in round 5 is 1 slip stitch in each stitch around 30. So all we do now is go into our first stitch. We don't have to do a chain stitch because the slip stitch just slips onto our stitches, so we don't need the height for it. So we just go into our first stitch and then pull our yarn all the way through. And we'll do this for each stitch around to get a nice border around our pad. Alright, and now we're all the way around. I'm doing my last slip stitch right here. And we have a nice border around the pad, which makes especially the side look much nicer. My camera doesn't like me today. And we're going to cut off our yarn and sew in the end. So we just pull it through, tighten it a bit. Since we have a slip stitch, works the same as a chain stitch to tighten, to fasten off. So I'm going to take my stitch marker out. And now we take our tail, and what I do to get it easily into the eye of the yarn is I just pinch it between the 2 fingers, so just a tiny little bit pokes out. Pinch it really tight, and then I wiggle my needle right over it, and then grab the yarn at the top and pull it through. It works almost every time, especially if the cut is nice and straight. It just works really easily. And you can use those little things that help you to get your yarn into your needle, but since it's relatively thick yarn and those things are usually made for thinner yarn, they tend to break. So I just do it with the pinching my fingers, and it works great. So now we pull it through to the back, because we always want to sew in our tails on the wrong side, not on the front, on the right side. So I pull it in, and now you have one little loop here from sewing it in. So what you can do to make it look nicer is just go back with your needle right back through the stitch, pull it through, and do a second one. You don't have to do this, but I like to do it to make it look a bit more uniform, so it looks like another stitch and it doesn't look like it's been sewn in right there. So now I turn back to the wrong side, and like we did last time, we just go through a couple stitches here. Doesn't have to be a lot of them. Pull our yarn through. Then we skip one loop, go in between the next, and feed the yarn right back to anchor it right there. Pull it through. Pull it tight a bit, but not enough to distort your workpiece. If you'd pull it really tight, you'd just get this all wobbly, so just pull it back. And then we cut off our yarn. And we are done. We just made a reusable, washable cotton pad. Now, there's another way of working in the round. I've made both ways. This is the one I did previously with joining as well. You can see where you work with joined if you look really, really closely. You can see these little stripes here as well. Those are the slip stitches that we joined with. You can also see that each round is a circle. So you have this round, because you connected them all, you joined them after each round. Another way to work in the round is to work continuously in a spiral, which I did in this one. So you can see that it spirals all the way to the outside because it is not joined at all. The advantage of this is that you don't have any of the joining stitches interrupting your work. And this is usually how amigurumi are worked. Most of them are worked in a continuous spiral. So I'm going to show you how to do this. We're going to make another one. I will be fast forwarding a lot in this one because we already did the whole method of increasing and so on and so forth. So now I just want to show you how to work continuously. All we're going to do is leave out the join stitches and the chain stitches. So I'm going to take this away so my camera has an easier time focusing on what I'm doing. I'm going to do another magic adjustable ring, which is what this method is called, because it's like magic. So you go through both loops on your finger, pull your yarn through, anchor it with a slip, make your first stitch a little looser so it's easier to work into it, and then do 6 single crochet stitches right in your ring. 3, 4, 5, 6. Slip the ring of your finger, pull the back one, not the one in the front, but the one in the back at the bottom. Pull it at the end to close your ring, and then pull the tail to anchor it. And then even if you pull really hard, it's not going to open again. That's why we do the double loop. And now I'm just going to work into my first stitch, and I'm not going to work a slip stitch. I'm just going to work the first single crochet right in there. And you probably want to use your stitch markers. I do this a lot, so for a little ring like this I don't really need a stitch marker. I'm just going to work the whole thing. So I'm going to start with 2 single crochet in each for 12 stitches, then 2 in the first, 1 in the next for 18, 2 in the first, 1 in the next 2 for 24, and then 2 in the first, 1 in the next 3 for 30. I'm just going to do the whole thing, and I'm probably going to fast forward most of this. So just know that you work continuously throughout the whole thing without joining or chaining in between at all. So it's just going to be one long spiral. And this time I'm not going to cut my tail off right away. I'm just going to put it to the back and hold it there with a finger so it's out of the way, and I'll cut it off later when I'm done with this piece. Alright, I have my 30 stitches. And another thing I want to mention is if you do not use a stitch marker and you lose your count at any point, there is a way to get back into it. Once you're more experienced, it will be easier, but even as a beginner, you can practice this. You can tell where your 2 single crochet are made, and that way you can count back. So you can see you look at this stitch, and you can see there's 2 lines coming out. That is 1 single crochet. Same here, 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet. Now this one has 4 lines coming out of it because there are 2 single crochet in it. So you can just count back like that. Again, here's one with 2. 1, 1, 1, 2. Here you can see that in this hole there's 4 lines coming out of it. So that's how you count back. So if you lose your count, and you know you're on the round where you increase by 5, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you just count back until you get to the point where you increased by 4. So you count 1, 2, 3 single, 1 double, 1, 2, 3 single, 1 double, 1, 2, 3 single, 1 double. And once you get to the point where it says 1, 2 single, a double, then you know that was your previous round. So you go to those 1, 2, 3, 4, and you know you have to start right here and start picking up your count, counting your stitches, and then you know where you are. So that's how you find your count again if you ever lose count. Just count back to see where your previous round was and then count up from there and you've got your count back. So I did my 30 stitches all the way around. So it's the right size now. Now I want to do the slip stitch border all the way around. So I'll do it just like I did with the joined one we did. Just go into your next stitch, do a slip stitch, and keep doing that all the way around your piece. Alright, and now we're all the way around. We do a last slip stitch and cut our yarn and pull it through. And as you can see, I'm pretty much almost out of yarn. I just have a little scrap left right here. I keep scraps even if they're this small. I have a big bin full of small leftovers of yarn, which can be as tiny as this, or, you know, larger balls. I just keep all these pieces of yarn because you might need them at some point. You can use them for embroidering details on dolls, doing a tiny little edge around a little shirt for a doll or something like that. So there's always a use for yarn. If it's a reasonable amount. If it's just a tiny tail like this, you don't want to keep that. But this is a reasonable amount. I could do something with it. So I want to keep this. I'm going to roll it up and put it in my scrap bin. So again, I'm going to sew in my tail to anchor it and to make sure it doesn't unravel at some point. And these pads are actually surprisingly sturdy. I have some that I have had for several years. And after using them, I just throw them in a little laundry bag. A little mesh bag that I have, and then they go into the wash with the towels and dishcloths and such in the hot wash, and then they go into the dryer and they come out really nice and soft and clean, and I can use them again. So you can use these for removing makeup or for cleaning your face, or, you know, whatever you use those disposable cotton pads for. So today we have worked in the round. We have worked a spiral, continuous spiral, and we have joined rounds. So we've learned 2 methods of working in the round. Different patterns use different methods. If you find one of them more attractive than the other one, or more comfortable, you can always substitute it. So if a pattern tells you work continuously but you would rather join, just go ahead and join. The more experience you get with crochet, the easier it'll be for you to amend patterns. And again, the biggest difference with joining is that you have even rounds that connect to each other, but you will also have these little lines that show you where you're connected. Now, most people who don't crochet won't even see this. They probably won't see a difference between these two at all. But the more you crochet, the more you see little things like that, because you know the methods, you know how it's done. So that's something to keep in mind. So as you can see, I've done 4 cotton pads and 1 dishcloth from this yarn. That was 1 ball of the Bernat Handicrafter. So it does get you quite a bit of yarn that you can work with. So just make a bunch of these if you like them. Try them out. Maybe just try out 4 at first. And if you really like them, make a bunch of these. I keep them in a little tin stacked on top of each other. It's a little round tea tin that I have in my bathroom. And these are really nice to use. And if you don't use them, give them to a friend. Find someone who would like to use them, or, you know, just keep practicing with it. And you could even connect them to make a blanket. And if you stitch them together in a way that the corners even meet, you'll get some kind of octagon or something out of it. So you can do a lot of different things with these. I just wanted to show you how to work in the round, and you've learned that. And next week, I will show you how to do color changes. So if you're working with one color and then want to switch to another one, I will show you how to do that in a very easy and nice way. So you're getting more experience and learning more and more. And you're going to be a crochet master in no time. Alright, thanks for joining me, and I hope I see you next week.